Okay, so crazy things that happen at the grocery store by my house. These are two different trips, both of which crazy things have happened. So the first one is the short version. It is kind of sad, it is a little funny, but either way, it's just crazy, which is the point of these vlogs. So this was during my summer tour, so I think I had about a week and a half that I was going to be home. So I decided to buy some groceries to keep in the house because I usually don't keep groceries in my house unless they're breakfast foods or beverages or a light snack because I'm usually never home long enough to actually cook anything, which really is depressing for me because I love to cook, and being raised by a traditional Italian American family, just cooking is a big part of who we are. So, but it's the price we pay for art and to live a dream. So, but this time I was going to have some time to actually be home, just away from touring, and I was going to have a couple days off from work. So I actually wanted to cook meals for myself and enjoy them. So, going to the grocery store and I'm walking around with my little carry basket, and I walk down the aisle that has the rice and the pasta, and I see this married couple. Just I'd say they were early to mid 30s, so they looked fairly young. And the wife is holding this box of Rice-A-Roni. And I just see her talking to her husband, and she looks a little scared. And she's saying, "But honey, you don't like this kind." And he's just saying, "I don't care, just get it." But honey, every time I make it, you never eat it." "I don't care, just get it." "I know, but sweetheart, I don't want to waste money on food that you're not going to eat." And he leans in and looks at her and goes, "Do we need to leave?" And she throws it in the cart and says, "Okay, we'll get it. I'm sorry." I almost witnessed a domestic fight over a box of Rice-A-Roni. It is sad, and I do know that there are situations out there where women are victimized, and they can be brainwashed by these just crazy, womanizing, misogynistic, this and that. So we'll keep it PG, the language. But honestly, I really did want to stand up and say something, and it's not that I chickened out. It's just I do weigh the consequences in certain situations like that. Honestly, when you do see issues like that, it's a woman can't just leave overnight if she's been in a bad relationship for that long. So honestly, in my opinion, I would have felt that if I would have said something or if I would have stood up, either way, she's still going to go home with them. I'm not going home with them, so I can't be there to defend her from him in that situation. So I was honestly more afraid that if I were to intervene, then perhaps she may have gotten an even worse backlash when she got home. But to be perfectly honest with you, there are so many women who have been victims of domestic violence, and they are survivors of domestic violence because they have to know when they've had enough, and they have to know that they're worth more than that. So I am very much a feminist, and I'm very much against domestic violence. But honestly, I don't really have that much sympathy for people who are victims who allow themselves to stay victims. So you really can't want something more for someone else than they should want it for themselves. So I honestly feel that if that woman did not want to get slapped in the face over a box of Rice-A-Roni or worse, then she should be with the man who knows what type of Rice-A-Roni that he likes and knows how to treat a woman. So that is just my own personal experience and my own personal belief system. My mother was almost a victim of domestic violence, and she refused to be a victim. So my stepfather, at the time, well, my ex-stepfather now, he got drunk, and my mother and him got into a fight, and he, in his drunken stupor, thought it was okay to slap my mother across the face, and she did not accept that whatsoever. So she packed up everything in the house, and her and I got out of there, and the next thing you know, she had a divorce attorney, and that was that. No matter how sorry he was, no matter how much therapy or counseling he promised to get, no matter how much he promised to check himself into AA, even though this was just the one time, my mother refused to be a victim. So she was strong enough for herself, she was strong enough for me. So I think that every woman, or man for that matter, who's involved for domestic violence, they should be strong enough for themselves. So getting a little preachy here, and I'm kind of getting away from my funny story. So the next story, this other time that I went to the grocery store, got out of work early, which is a rare occurrence. So I made it home, and it was a good 3.5 hours earlier than I'm used to being home. So there was no way that I was going to fall asleep. So go to the grocery store, and I wanted to rent a movie from the movie box that they have there, but as it turns out, it was gone. So I talked to customer service. They actually say they got rid of movie box because they're going to be getting a red box. So what they were so in the meantime, they just didn't have a place to rent movies. So I was just going to buy one of the old movies from the big bins of movies that they have. So I'm looking around in this one bin, and there's an adjacent bin. This one guy walks up, just tall, skinny, and he's got ear gauges the size of Pillsbury Grand's biscuits. And he's looking in his bin, I'm looking in my bin. He picks up one of the Saw movies, and he asks, "So, how many Saw movies are there now?" And I said, I believe it's Saw 6 that's coming out in October in theaters. And he says, "Oh, well, we'll see how far they go with this one." And I said, "Yeah, they just kind of keep getting gorier and gorier." And he says, "Oh, well, there's nothing wrong with a little blood and a little pain. I think it's kind of hot." And I just say, "Yeah, I guess it just depends on what you're into." So he walks over to the bin where I'm looking at movies, and he asks, "So, what are you into?" And I just look at him and say, excuse me?" And he says, "No, what movies are you checking out?" And I said, "Oh, okay, Reno 911 Miami." And he leans forward and goes, "Oh, well, that seems like a lot of fun." And I said, "Okay, well, yeah, well, we'll see how it goes. You have a good night." And I walk away. And then the next thing I see is this tall, skinny black man who looks like he could have at least been 7 feet. Because I'm 6'3", and I was wearing boots that gave me about a good 1.5 inches of height. And this man just towered over me, just tall, skinny as all get out black man. And he was walking with this short, husky, chubby white guy who looked like he couldn't have been more than 5'7". And they were holding hands, being just as fabulous as they wanted to be. So I just figured, okay, that's cute, that's sweet, that's love. There's a foot for every shoe, I suppose. And I'm walking around and to get more stuff from the grocery store. And mind you, it's late, so they have the floor crew out. They have these ladders so you can change the fluorescent light bulbs in the ceiling. It is the most irresponsible manufacturing I think I've ever seen in my life. It's a 12-foot ladder, and it has the actual ladder that you climb up. But instead of having the two supporting legs that swing forward and out, it had this one long, round, cylindrical post that comes out of the other side, so it stands like a tripod. So one of the members of the floor crew climbs up, undoes the latch, changes the light bulb, puts the burnt out one on top of the aisle, and the ladder wobbles. He falls off, lands on a floor buffer, stands up and looks at his shoulder and just goes, pops it back in the socket, and then goes back to work. I guess that's what happens when I get off early and I experience things in my grocery store. Crazy madness, but yeah, I saw it all firsthand.